Before dawn, Eric felt the keel hum under the longship as the swell lifted and let it fall. The air tasted of brine and cold iron, and somewhere ahead lay the low shape of an island. He watched the steering oar and the carved prow, listened to the creak of wet rope, and steadied his breath. He had crossed nights like this before, yet this one carried a tightness in his chest. The men around him moved in quiet rhythm, and he fixed his eyes on the thinning darkness. He remembered the fjord and the hunger that lingered after winter. He remembered the old seer pointing at the gulls that fed on the tide and calling it a good sign. He did not feel chosen. He felt practical. The sea gave paths where land gave walls. The chieftain had spoken of a soft shore, of monks who kept silver and showed no spears. Eric had tied his kit, gripped the oar, and left home with a nod he hoped was steady. Morning bled into the clouds and the island showed itself at last, a dark brushstroke on a pale horizon. Eric saw low fields and a cluster of stone buildings with a small bell tower. He watched gulls spiral over kelp-stained rocks. No palisade, no watchfire, only a handful of figures moving like beetles near the shore. He felt the crew lean forward as if their hunger leaned with them. He counted the boats to either side and took stock without words. They shipped their oars and let the sail draw until the water thinned. Eric checked the edge of his axe with a thumb and tightened the strap on his shield. Leather creaked like an old voice. He touched the small hammer charm at his neck, not as a plea, but as a habit. He measured the wind, the tide, the distance to the beach, the steps from beach to wall, the door to the hall. He felt the ship answer the helm and knew the moment had finally arrived. Keels grated on wet sand. Eric leapt into the cold shallows, water biting through wool, and shoved. Men splashed beside him, breath smoking. He heard a distant bell and the soft murmur of voices that seemed to be singing. The grass beyond the beach glistened with dew, and the stone buildings sat like sleeping cattle. He tasted the calm before noise, and his steps shortened as he felt the ground begin to slope toward the first door. They moved at once. Eric ran with his shield high, boots drumming earth, and felt the first gate shudder under shoulders and axe hafts. Wood splintered like ice. He saw startled faces, a bowl of grain flung aside, a novice stumble, and a father raise empty hands as if to hold the weather back. The world narrowed to paths and thresholds. He heard the thud of blows, the crack of doors, the hiss of breath. He kept to the plan in his head: yard, hall, treasury, and out. He had been told to be quick and to be firm. His arm rose and fell against resistance he could not name and would not dwell on. He felt fear glance off him like rain and kept moving, because movement felt like safety, and stillness felt like a trap. In a narrow passage, he met an old monk with a face lined like driftwood. The man clutched a small box to his chest. Eric saw no blade, only shaking hands and eyes, bright with something that was not defiance, and not surrender either. His grip on the axe loosened. He stepped forward, pressed the monk against the wall with the shield rim, and took the box. He bound the man with cord, quick and rough, then pulled him into the light. The box was light. The moment was not. He told himself he had kept to the plan. The hall smelled of beeswax and salt. On a table lay cups chased with thin vines, a small cruciform of pale gold, and a bowl of silver coins that caught every shaft of light. Eric felt the old itch in his palms, the practical weight of value. Beside the riches lay a heavy book with a skin that shone like a storm-beaten shell. He could not read its marks. He could read only metal and the hunger it answered. He took what would buy winter and did not linger. Shouts rose from the yard. A pair of monks, braver than their robes, swung staves at a raider near the well. Eric stepped into the open and saw the scene yaw to one side as the wind freshened, a squall shouldering the clouds. He moved to the flank, shield forward, and turned a blow aside, the stave clacking like antler on wood. The monk stumbled back, then ran. Eric let him go. The plan in his head pressed him toward the shore as the first drops of rain spotted the dust. Smoke licked from a thatch as if the wind had teeth. Eric felt heat on his cheek and heard the dry sigh of straw catching. He disliked fire near boats and men, but he knew what flames did to courage. He checked the path to the beach, counted heads he knew, and gathered what hands could carry. The island's bell clanged wrong beneath the weight of noise, as if it had forgotten its own meaning. Back on the wet sand, men staggered under sacks and small chests. A few captives were herded toward the shallows, eyes down, steps uncertain. Eric counted his crew, noted a red stain on one man's sleeve, and said nothing. He hauled the prow around with two others until the keel floated. He felt the clean pull of the sea reclaiming the boat, and with it, the slackening of a knot in his belly. Oars bit water. The island receded, no larger than a hand now, smoke trailing like a torn banner. Eric watched the shore turn from faces to stones, from stones to a line. The bell still rang in his head. He felt the weight of silver in the boat and the emptiness where noise had been. Triumph and unease walked together like brothers who did not speak. He kept the rhythm because rhythm kept thought at bay. By afternoon, the sea had settled into its old work. Eric wiped salt from his face and cleaned his axe with careful hands, working at the places where the grain of the edge had nicked. He rinsed the leather and watched pink water spin away in the wake until it was only water again. Around him, men added up shares without speaking their sums. He tested the lashing on the sacks and decided they would hold. Toward evening, he watched the sky do its old trick, turning gold at the edges and iron above. Stories began in low voices, not of glory, but of small things that had nearly gone wrong. Eric offered little. He felt the day settling in him as silt settles in a river bend. He did not call the island holy or unholy. He called it soft ground that had given way beneath his feet because he had stepped hard. He thought of the path between two worlds, the cold country behind him and the green one ahead, linked by water and need. Word would run along beaches and into halls faster than a sail could fill. Eric understood how news worked. He felt a door had opened in the seaways, and once a door stood open, men passed through it again and again until a path became a road. Night came slow, and then all at once. Eric lay with his cloak about him, listening to the hull speak softly to the waves. He named the day in his mind without pride. He had crossed grey water at dawn, run at a stone house, met eyes that would not leave him, taken metal that would buy winters, and left on the same tide. He knew he would remember the bell in the old man's hands. He also knew the sea would call him back to other doors. By first light, the island would be only a rumor behind him. Yet he sensed the day would not end behind him. It would carry, stitching shores together with fear and boldness. In one day they had crossed grey waters, struck the holy island of Lindisfarne, fought in courtyards and halls, seized silver and men, and slipped away with the tide. From his narrow view, it had been need and nerve. From the wide world's view, it would be the opening stroke of a long age.